Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a habit so many of us have, the psychology of over-apologizing. We're going to break down the exact science behind why some people simply cannot stop saying, "I'm sorry," uncovering what is actually a totally fascinating psychological iceberg. I promise, once you understand the hidden mechanics behind this pattern, you are going to see your everyday interactions in a completely different light.
Really, think about it for a second. Have you ever met someone who says sorry for things they absolutely didn't do? Or, hey, if we're being totally honest, maybe that person is you. Have you ever apologized for walking past someone in a grocery aisle, for asking a totally necessary question? Or, my personal favorite, have you ever bumped into a mannequin and instinctively blurted out an apology to it? It's incredibly common, but the reasons behind it go way, way deeper than you might think.
Now, the common myth here is that over-apologizing is just extreme politeness or maybe a severe lack of confidence, but psychology actually shows us reality is vastly different. Over-apologizing is a hidden survival mechanism. It is a highly logical way the brain tries to manage tension and protect itself. So, to understand exactly how this works, let's look at the very first layer of this iceberg. Layer 1, the mental radar.
The whole foundation of this mental radar is a psychological trait called high self-monitoring. People who over-apologize are often naturally, too aware of their environment. They don't just passively hang out in a conversation. Oh no, they are constantly analyzing your tone of voice, your micro-expressions, and how they might be affecting you in real time. Because their brain is perpetually evaluating how they're coming across, they use an apology as a preemptive strike. They're literally trying to neutralize any potential misunderstanding before the other person has even registered there's a problem.
And here's the catch. This hyper-awareness, it doesn't just shut off when the conversation ends. It leads directly to rumination. Many over-apologizers are chronic overthinkers. They repeatedly replay past conversations in their minds, zooming in on tiny details to find some kind of hidden meaning. Like, did they sound annoyed? Or was that pause just a little too long? They get trapped in these mental loops long after an interaction is officially over.
And that creates what we call the exhausting overthinking loop. It usually goes like this. First, the brain notices tiny details, like a slightly delayed text response. Second, it searches for hidden meanings, automatically assuming something is wrong. And finally, you apologize to clear that mental clutter. You're basically hoping that tossing out a quick "I'm sorry" will magically resolve the uncertainty that is keeping you stuck in this exhausting loop of worry.
Which brings us deeper down the iceberg to layer 2, the emotional sponge.
Highly aware individuals often experience something known in psychology as emotional contagion. This means you don't just notice when someone is frustrated or upset, you actually physically absorb that tension right into your own body. If the atmosphere in a room feels heavy, awkward, or tense, the over-apologizer feels it deeply and viscerally. It's almost as if it's their own personal emotion. So, because they absorb all that ambient stress, they feel a desperate need to fix it. They use the apology as an environmental reset button. And this is crucial. They aren't apologizing because they did something wrong. They are apologizing because their brain is trying to lower the room's stress level by taking the blame. They're just hoping the sorry will magically diffuse the heavy atmosphere. Plunging into the deepest emotional waters now, we find layer 3, the shield. Down at this depth, we find the concept of conditional value. For many who apologize constantly, their sense of self-worth isn't internal. It is deeply tied to how they are perceived by others. They quietly harbor this heartbreaking belief that they are replaceable. They feel like if they aren't perfectly helpful, agreeable, and accommodating at all times, others will simply move on and find someone better. In their minds, they have to constantly earn their place in a relationship by being the one willing to fall on their sword just to keep the peace. This intense fear of rejection creates the apology shield. Saying sorry becomes the absolute ultimate way to play it safe. By taking the blame instantly, you completely avoid conflict. You see, they're terrified that an argument could lead to being ignored or abandoned, so the apology acts as a literal shield against any kind of emotional distance. And finally, at the very bottom of our psychological iceberg lies the deep root, learned behavior. Listen, this kind of thing doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process. Step 1. Early in life, a person's emotions or needs are frequently ignored, so the brain learns that expressing pain simply isn't safe. Step 2. The child adapts. They try to become as small and easy to manage as humanly possible. And finally, step 3.
Over time, apologizing becomes the absolute default response to ensure they are never, ever seen as a burden.
Okay, let's come back up for air and look at the reframing, a new perspective.
If you're recognizing yourself in this explainer today, please let this thought sink in for a second. It's not a character flaw, it's a sign that your mind is working very hard to keep you safe and connected. Your brain is not broken, it is executing a highly logical adaptation. But now that you're actually aware of the machinery operating behind the scenes, you have the power to step right out of that automatic loop.
Which leaves us with this final essential question to chew on. How will you build a sense of worth that isn't dependent on others' approval? Once you realize you don't have to apologize for simply existing, a whole new world of confidence opens up. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to guide you through our next deep dive into the human mind.